Hey everybody, it's Romania Black, and we are on episode 10 of Cherry Magic. And yeah, I've pretty much decided at this point I'll probably read the manga after this season based on people's comments in the comment section, which people have been really kind and considerate, and they haven't been spoiling anything, but they basically have said, well, I'd read the manga. And I was like, ugh. So yeah, I always, here's the thing, if I do read the manga and they make a season 2 of the anime, I may not react to it. It just depends on what happens, right? So who knows? But yeah, that's kind of the give and take. If I react to the manga, I probably won't react to an additional season of an anime. I've had that happen with, like, right now, Toilet Bound Hanako-kun has a second season, but I'm like, I've already read the manga. So I'm like, I already know what happens. So it's like, I could watch it in my own time and talk about the season and just review it, but I don't know if people want to read that or watch that, rather. So I don't know. But it's kind of like, I like reacting to things blind. So once I've seen it, unless it's something I love dearly, like I reacted to Jurassic Park a little while back because it was commissioned and it's one of my favorite movies. Recently on the channel, I've looked at Super Mario Brothers 1993, which is so wild, but that's a fun thing because it's kind of goofy and, but I just don't have an interest in reacting. My interest wanes. The only exception I've already said is like Ace of the Diamond, but that's like my favorite sports anime. So we'll just see. But I think I would like to react to the manga. I'm curious your thoughts down below with all of that. If I do react to the manga, it will probably be just one volume a month, because I've got so many other extras and other series that I'm reading and catching up with, so it would probably be just one volume a month. If you'd be interested in that, in me reacting one volume a month to Cherry Magic, then comment down below and let me know, just so I can kind of gauge interest and see if people would actually watch those reactions, or if you don't care if I react to the manga or not. I'm interested in that. That is something that I definitely want to know before I invest that time in it, because I would like to keep going with the Cherry Magic because it's such a good series. I love this series so much. And last episode, even though it was angst with episode 9, I was like, okay, I trust this series. That's the thing. I trust Cherry Magic that they're going to do well with this. Adachi's going to have to do some soul searching, figure out how he wants to respond to Kurosawa, and then come back to him and give him an answer. And I trust this series that it's going to give us that in the appropriate context. Whether it takes this episode or the rest of the season to get to that, we shall see. We shall see. The only comment I have going into this episode is actually I backtracked. I had missed a comment from Anime Annie for episode 6, and they said, I can't remember if any of the other shows you've watched have included red rice, but just a little bit of cultural context for Fujisaki planning to eat it that night. Red is considered to be a symbol of happiness in Japan, and so the idea of eating red rice, which is just rice with red beans in it, is considered to be a celebratory food. That's really good to know, because the only context I have for red rice is Sir Mix-a-Lot. Red beans and rice didn't miss her. That is the only context I have for red beans. And rice, that and the fact that I grew up with it, so, baby got back. Anyway, I will keep checking the comments and keep seeing if anything pops out, so don't you worry about that. Before we start, I want to give a shout out over to our Patreon, to our philanthropy tier, to thank you all so much for your support of me watching this series, as well as other series on the channel. My shameless plug is, if you are not liking the videos, whether on Patreon or YouTube, if you haven't subscribed on Patreon or YouTube, please, if you don't have any money, subscribe on YouTube. It's easy. But if those of you that give me support on Patreon, I super appreciate it. I know times are hard. Everybody's not got a lot of money, but donating that $5 a month or $1 a month is insane, and I'm so grateful for you. And those that donate $10 a month, that get a shout out in my videos because they're just that awesome. So special shout out to Alex Cornejo, to Be Happy, to Bisa, to Damage3245, to Dana, to Devorin, to Danger Zone, to Destiny Marie, to Eric, to Ichu, to El Cuno, as well as Fisho, Ghostly Turnip, El Freya, Lyndon, Liam Polzel, as well as Matthew Palfinier, Murphy, Willie Morris, Translucent Men, Sunspots, and Shimoyama. Thank you all so much for your support. I greatly appreciate it. All of my love. Yeah. So anyway, I'm super excited. Do I think that we're going to resolve this all in one episode? Maybe. I don't know. This series does the thing where I'm like, oh, it's going to take forever for them to get resolution, and then they just do it. And I'm like, oh, or we'll just do it. So I don't know how that's gonna go, but we're gonna find out. So we're gonna start episode 10 of Cherry Magic, and we're gonna find out for ourselves, and we're gonna do that here in 3, 2, 1, and I'll see you all on the other side. Well, that episode was a lot different than I expected. Oh my god! So the Nagasaki trip, this trip, that these two are like, oh my god, we're gonna be apart, and I just don't know if our relationship will be able to handle the long distance ramifications, is less than 2 weeks. Is less than 2 weeks. My dudes. The honeymoon phase is real. Now look, I have read manga. They're in Daokusei Classmates, amazing series. You should be reading it if you haven't already. There is a trip that one of the characters goes on, and it's like he has to go international, so he has to go across the country to a different country for a trip, and it's like a week long. And during that time, it's their first time being that far apart, and they're like, oh, I do. They're fine. They're fine. They're fine. It's like, you dramatic gaze. But honestly, I do know couples that when they are apart for a week, especially like young couples, I feel like couples that have been married for like 40 years or like whatever, but I feel like young couples especially people I know that were dating while we were in school and stuff, they were like, I'm gonna be away from them for a week, and I was like, okay. And so, but some people, that's their relationship dynamic. They're like attached to the hip. If that works for you and your partner, awesome. And Adachi and Kurosawa definitely ascribe to that type of dynamic. So that's fair. You're going to be apart 10 days and it's going to drive you crazy. Okay. But I was expecting like a 6-month or 3-month, like a 90-day trip to set up this branch. 10 days? But I guess that makes more sense because they were offering like housing and a raise. So I was like, okay, they're not going to pay for your housing for 3 months. This company isn't. So 10 days is much more realistic. You're gonna stay in like an Airbnb for 10 days, but what? The one thing is, this episode, Kurosawa and Adachi kind of take a back seat. This was really Tsuge and Minato's episode, which we have 2 more episodes of the season after this. So I feel like they're going to be equally split between Adachi and Kurosawa resolving their thing and Minato and Tsuge resolving their thing. And there's a lot more to talk about with Minato and Tsuge. I think that this was a really good episode for Kurosawa and Adachi because they needed their space. And Adachi's biggest fault, as Tsuge reads him like a damn book, but Adachi's biggest fault is that he is not good with words. And I'm glad he didn't decide to necessarily text Kurosawa, because when he proposed that to Tsuge, I was like, ooh, don't text. No, not when you need to like express yourself, because that's just like reading his mind. How is that, you're not communicating. I would understand if he wrote it out on a piece of paper because he doesn't know how to express himself. If you wrote it out on a piece of paper, it would be really romantic and super cute if he wrote out his thoughts on a piece of paper and he's like, I'm not good at expressing myself, so I'm going to write it out. But he needs to read it in front of Kurosawa. He needs to read it. Even if he types it out on his phone like a text, he needs to save it and then in front of Kurosawa so they can talk through the reaction and communicate. Then he can read it out loud. And that'd be kind of cute because Adachi's not good at expressing himself. So he can be like, I wrote this out to show you my thoughts and I've thought about it a lot and here's how I feel, but I wrote this out so that you'd understand. That would be cute. And I'd be like, okay, cool. But I'm definitely not a text someone to resolve. I'm like, I want to talk with them face to face. And even if I do text, I want to follow up with a face to face. So we'll see. We'll talk through that. But I am glad that Adachi and Kurosawa did not talk this episode. They need to kind of like sit that out. And I honestly, what I wanted to happen was for Adachi to go to that trip, think out what he wants to say. And here's the thing. Kurosawa loves him. Kurosawa thinks badly of himself right now, which he shouldn't. When he said he showed Adachi his worst traits, I was like, if those are your worst traits, sir, where's a clone of you? Because I want one of those. But yeah, I was like, Kurosawa, you're fine. And the thing is, I think Adachi Adachi and Kurosawa, they both mutually love each other. So even if there's some time taken for them to kind of soul search and everything, when they come back and talk to one another, it's gonna be fine. I'm looking forward to it because I want to see what that communication looks like. I want to see how it goes down. So I'm excited either next episode or the finale to see what happens. And who knows? I feel like they're going to show us in the finale the confrontation between them again, and then the manga will pick up from that point. But I'm like, I want to see how this goes down. So the main thing of this episode, though, was Minato and Tsuge, which is, oddly enough, Adachi and Kurosawa are pretty straightforward in comparison. These two are a little bit more complicated, and I kind of like that. So Tsuge's like, how'd you know I was a romantic novelist? He's like, well, I saw your book Waltz on display. My question is, why hasn't Tsuge been doing his hair like he did for this novel promotion? His hair looks great. He looks amazing in this promo. He had longer hair. I was like, no offense to Suge's little short spiky number, but I'm like, this long hair, you can work it, my dude. You can work it. You need to get back on that train because that looks pretty good, actually. Maybe he'll go through an angsty phase and grow his hair back out. I'm like, you should totally do that because right now it's like short and spiky and maybe it's because of the summer, whatever. So he's like, well, did you read my book? And he's like, yeah, the dancer the protagonist is in love with is interesting. He's like, was surprisingly cute despite his crappy personality. Tsuge, you gonna be in trouble if Minato thinks the dancer protagonist you wrote about was based on him and you just said he had a crappy personality. My dude, what were you doing? The other thing is, I just thought of this because he talks about his ulterior motive. The other thing is, what if Minato has misunderstood and Minato thought that Tsuge was just using him as a muse for his novel, and that's the ulterior... When he said ulterior motives, I was like, is this a translation issue, or did he legit say that? Because ulterior motives can come across in a number of different ways. I know you're a novelist, but you should have picked better words. Because I'm like, what? So I wonder if Minato thought that by ulterior motives, did he connect the dots and think, oh, Tsuge was just using me as a muse for his stories, and that's all he views, and he's just using me as inspiration for his writing? Because I could see Minato being mad if someone was using him and not finding that attractive at all. I could see that. There's a number of options. That last scene, finding out that he was asked to be the new part of the dance crew for the judge. Here's the thing. It was a dance competition. I wonder if when the guy called him back saying the judges want to talk to you, if the judges approached him and said, hey, you may not win the competition tonight, but we want to go ahead and sign you. It's kind of like, okay, do you know the band One Direction? I know. Harry Styles, Liam, all that. Look, I like Harry Styles. His music is great. I actually like that. I've wore his shirt on some reactions. But I wasn't a One Direction fan. My best friend is a massive One Direction fan, is now a massive Harry Styles fan, but was a massive One Direction fan. And I've gone to several concerts out of friendly devotion. So out of platonic friendship, I've gone to concerts. But I have learned that One Direction, their band originally were on, I think, Britain's Got Talent or something like that. And individually, they didn't win. But afterwards, one of the judges, Simon Cowell, was like, hey, you all didn't win individually, but what if I put this group together from you all and you all formed a band? And that's kind of how One Direction was, I'm abridging a lot, but that's how One Direction came to be as a band, is that these guys that didn't necessarily win the competition, they were asked behind the scenes to form this band afterwards, and then they became the group that they are. I think that's what happened with Minato. I think when the judges talked to him, they're like, hey, we don't think you're going to win this competition individually, but we would like to get a group of you guys together and form my backup crew, and y'all can be my backup dancers while I'm on tour. And they formed Trip Track or whatever they are. We'll see in a minute. So, yeah, I think that's what happened. Now, does Minato believe that Tsuge was using him for inspiration for his own books. I don't know if that's true or not. I could see if he took that, took that from the conversation, or has he been so busy it was like a whirlwind and he didn't know how to tell Tsuge, because if they're going on tour, he's not going to be around Tsuge a lot. He's going to have to quit his job as the temp and go on tour. And so maybe he feels bad being like, oh, you supported me through all of my endeavors and you've really inspired me and supported me, but I can't give back to you because now I have to be on tour and I don't know if you're going to be like okay with that. And if you like me, does this put a dampen on our relationship because it's long distance from the start? And I'm so curious to find out what the deal is with Minato and Tsuge. I want to know what happens with them in these next 2 episodes. But I think Tsuge has resigned himself that like, oh, he's just, moved on and he didn't, love me back and that's fine. And Tsuge has a very mature mindset about it, but I think Tsuge also gets he does kind of like Adachi, which we all kind of do that to ourselves. We get down on ourselves and we don't consider the other possibilities. And I think that's what's happened here, but and then Tsuge's like, oh God, you read my book. And he's like, why are you apologizing? You've published a lot of books, haven't you? You're a real author. Here's my thing. In this world of publishing that we live in now, I don't know. I don't have a TikTok. I have a TikTok on the channel, but I haven't posted on it in like a year. I know that Book Talk exists. I also know that the books on it are pretty questionable. So, I'm like, real author is a might bit subjective. But I believe that I hate that Minato, I think Tsuge is successful and I think he is a real author. I'm not saying that he's not, but I feel bad that Minato has compared himself to Tsuge because they are not the same thing at all. Like dancing and writing are totally different professions. And he's like, you're a real author. Is there a trick to sticking with something for a long time? Because, I can relate to Minato a lot because he feels like he's the old. It was reminding me of Yuri on Ice a little bit because dancing and skating, if you've not seen Yuri on Ice, why are you still here? Pause this and go watch it and come back. Or put it in your queue and watch it right after this. But in Yuri on Ice, which is about figure skating, and with dancing, they are both very highly physical, technical professions, and they require a lot out of your bodies physically. And as we get older, our bodies just break down. They just do. And so usually like figure skaters, your 20s are like your prime years. And by the time you hit your 30s, it's like, bye. And so dancing, it's, except for a rare few, dancing is kind of the same way. It's a very limited time period of you being able to do that to your maximum capacity. I watch a lot of Drag Race, and I've even seen like queens who have talked about very physical queens. Like I think of Laganja Estranja and Aja. Laganja Estranja's in their 30s now. And she's talked about how, she can't do the same stunts that she used to do because they physically have hurt her body so much. So it's one of those things. I feel like Minato is like, whenever he competes, he, feels that the competition gets younger and younger and he gets older and older and feels that disconnect and doesn't feel his worth as a dancer because he's like, well, these younger kids are so much better than me and they have so much more potential. I'm only going to be able to dance for a limited amount of time. And that's the thing. The big difference between Minato and Tsuge is Tsuge can be an author till he's like 80, as long as he can still type and think up stories. That profession is a totally different scale than dancing. But they both are professions that not a lot of people can make a living off of successfully. So it's understandable why he's like, well, what's the trick to sticking to something and not giving up? And Tsuge is like, well, I imagine the faces of my readers. And then he says, without an audience, writing is meaningless nonsense. Now, I do disagree with Tsuge on that. I actually disagree with that. I think writing doesn't have to have an audience. Some people would argue you write for yourself and the audience is meaningless. I wonder if that's like a cultural difference because like with Donmai, MXTX, for example, would publish their chapters like week to week or month to month or whatever the time frame was, and people would respond as they're writing the story, which is a super interesting take because I feel like in the West, unless you're doing like fan fiction where it's not being published, usually you create the whole draft, the whole story, and then you publish it and then it gets reception. And that's kind of the publishing industry. You can do it like that where you publish it on, some people do publish their works on like a fan site. and do that feedback. But it doesn't seem like it's as popular in Western culture as it is in Eastern culture. So maybe in Eastern culture, your audience's reaction is important. I'm kind of torn about it because I've considered like publishing works that I've written to see feedback. I've been torn about it because on the one hand, do you run the risk of your audience influencing your writing and making you stray away from your, I think back to Scumville and Self-Saving System, and I'm thinking about it constantly. And like, if you don't know that, you should go look it up. But I'm like, ooh, does your audience influence what you write? And does it change the writing from what you wanted it to be? So I don't know if I agree with Tsuge on that. That's so interesting. I feel like some people would argue you write for yourself and the audience will get on board if that's their jam, but you should write because it's important to you, not necessarily what the audience wants. And that kind of goes with content creation too. You need to do what you want, not necessarily what's... My thing is, I know there's a lot of shows that are trendy, but some of them I'm like, it doesn't seem like my cup of tea. So I don't want to react to that because I don't think I'd have a lot of fun with it. So, and then I've had shows that people have recommended that have turned out to be really good surprises. So it's a mixed bag. But yeah, I feel like what Tsuge is getting to at the heart of it though, is that you have to have a passion and you have to want to connect with the people you're doing it for. Like the one judge tells him in the preliminary rounds, if you just have skill and just technique, that will get you so far, but you have to love what you're doing. And Minato was so focused on just perfecting the skill, he was forgetting why he was loving what he was doing. And he was so worried that he was, too late to get in the game that it was dragging him down. And apparently now he's, and if I were Minato, I would take that chance to go on tour because dance is only going to be limited to a certain amount of time. He can always go back and get that job that guy was promoting. Those kind of jobs are going to be open when he's done, right? They may be harder to obtain after a while, but with his resume, I think he'll be fine because it'll show what a hard worker he is. But your body is only physically going to be able to do something for an amount of time. Take advantage of that now, and then you can do a desk job later, right? So I thought, though, when he stopped talking to Tsuge, and because he didn't make it to past the final, I thought he stopped talking to Tsuge because he felt like he had let him down and he was going to go take and then when we saw the temp, I'm like, oh, he took the office job that the one friend offered him and he didn't want to, reveal that to Tsuge because he would feel like a failure. And like Tsuge did all those things for him and helped him out so much. And then he'd feel like a failure, like, oh, I've let Tsuge down after he did so much for me. I don't want to, look bad in front of him. But now I'm curious because he got what he wanted and Tsuge helped him. So you would think he'd be like, thanks for everything, man, and tell him about the tour. But I'm like, why aren't you talking to him about the tour? Unless he was freaked out by Tsuge confessing that he potentially likes him. And he was like, I don't know what to say to that. And he's now like Adachi, where he's not knowing what to say. So it's like, you have Minato and Adachi going on different directions away from their love interests. Kurosawa, is kind of sad because he thinks that maybe Adachi is distancing himself. He doesn't know that Adachi behind the scenes is prepping a damn essay to possibly read to him or say to him. And meanwhile, Minato might just be busy with this whole whirlwind of the tour and doesn't know what to say to Tsuge, or doesn't know, like Adachi, how to communicate his feelings to Tsuge. And of course, Tsuge has taken it to the worst level and thinks that Minato has just moved on, which is really sad because Tsuge did so much for him. And to think that Minato just doesn't like him and is moving on, that's really heartbreaking. So I feel for Tsuge. I also realized in this episode, Tsuge is a damn catch. Tsuge is great. Like, I would be all for a partner like Tsuge, right? He's like a god to me. And so then Tsuge reveals that, it's like having your novel judged by Dazai Osamu, which Dazai Osamu, who wrote No Longer Human, is like one of the big Japanese writers. I know he visits the bar Lupin because it was featured in Bungo Stray Dogs. If I ever go to Japan, I have to go to the bar Lupin. I don't really drink anymore, but I would have one drink so that I could, say that I drank in the same spot as the famous Japanese writers, right? He's like, yeah. He's like, I'm sure you'll be fine, which is super cute. Meanwhile, Adachi is thinking about everything that Kurosawa has said to him. And so he looks back at, he sees Tsuge's novel on the floor. I love when he comes over to Tsuge's house, he brings him some brings him some snacks to be like, thank you for letting me in for advice. Here is some takoyaki. But Tsuge, like, cuts right to the point. Tsuge's like, yeah, you asked somebody other than your boyfriend for advice? That was a terrible move. Which Tsuge's probably like, party foul. Why would you do that? Yeah. I love he's like, what did you think was going to happen? You didn't even tell him why you rejected the author because you were afraid of hurting him. Reads him like a damn book. He's like, how else would he feel other than anxious? He can't read your mind. And I like Adachi's like, yeah, I know. And I'm so glad that Tsuge tells Adachi this. He's like, I've been worried about you for a while. Because Tsuge was ready to talk to Minato. He was ready to talk to him. He's communicating saying, hey, are you okay? I want to talk to you. Like, he is not afraid to communicate. He maybe comes to the wrong conclusions, you know, and thinks down on himself, but he's not afraid to communicate. But Adachi, he says, put positively, you're kind, but put negatively, because you have so little self-esteem in yourself, if you could hear the thoughts of someone that you liked, you would definitely end up acting to fulfill their desires without realizing it. He's like, you're basically trying to please this person, but in trying to please this person, you're not being yourself. And that's, you can't do that. It's like I love that they talk about the negativity of this power, that this power, if you rely too much on it, you're going to stop being yourself and just try to please that person, but then it's going to not be you and be false, and that's even worse. So I love that they portray how this power is a problem, and Tsuge is like, you would try to please this person, but in the end, is that going to be sustainable? The answer is it's not. What will you do if you lose the ability to read minds? He's like, if you can't read his mind anymore, how are you going to stay in that relationship? And Adachi's like, yep. At some point, I was relying on this power way too much. I can't get anywhere unless I tell him how I feel. Which is why I'm glad. Also, I like the consistency of him wearing the date shirt. I like the idea that he's trying to think out exactly what to say, which is good. He's like, this is the first time I experienced such messy feelings from Kurosawa. Which Kurosawa was respectful. I was like, Kurosawa says those were his worst traits. I'm like, oh, you communicating healthily and expressing your anger in a respectful tone? Oh, no. I was like, my dude. But yeah, I could see why, you know, he's kind of like Adachi in that he doesn't want, you know, when you start a relationship with someone, you don't want your messier or, you know, not perfect traits to be on display. It's kind of like, you know, you don't want to go to the bathroom in front of your crush to reveal that you're human, you know? But I feel like everybody's like that. When they start a relationship, you just want to put forth the best of yourself to show how wonderful you are. And it's not until you're further in that relationship that you kind of start to reveal those vulnerabilities about yourself and your weaknesses and things like that. And that's hard because you want the person you like to be okay with those weaknesses, to understand them and to accept them. And sometimes people don't. And Adachi has experience with that, like with the one girl telling the guy, like, I don't want to deal with his firsts because that's too much for me. It's understandable, right? So Tsuge's like, but the fact that you care so much about this shows that you care. He's like, in that case, there's another way. So Tsuge tells him the other way, but we don't get to see what that is. I'm assuming he's going to write it out and then come back. Maybe he'll sing a song. Maybe he'll sing a song, like the date song, to Kurosawa when he comes back. Maybe he'll do that. Who knows, right? So then we go to the dance, bring it on, the dance sequence in front of the one guy who looks like, okay, free... who does Daisuke Ono play in that series? Was it? I feel so bad. Kinjo. Yes, Kinjo. I was like Kaide. It's a K name. My mind had gone blank. He looks like Kaide. Old Shota here looks like Kaide from Free, like it would be his cousin or something. I was just expecting that. He's like, Shota-san is watching me. Mm-hmm. I mean, the moment they commented on how handsome Minato was, I was like, oh, he'd be good for the spotlight, right? I do like the little aspect of there being, you can see all the guys kind of sad and supporting each other in the background after they don't make the final. There was a lot of vulnerability and emotions in this dance scene, and bros being bros and friendship. And I really like that about this episode, because there definitely is like a male friendship epidemic in the West. And seeing these guys being there to support each other platonically and friendly is like, oh, it can be done. See? So Tsuge doesn't know if he'll make the final or not. But he's like, I watched the stream. I'm going to support you next time. Also, I like that Minato's background is these dancers on the phone in black silhouettes. Like, what? So the one guy with the red hair that is maybe making it to the consolation round, he looks like he was maybe chosen to be in the dance group. We're going to have to see that later. So, Hashiguchi, where's he been this whole time? Hashiguchi is a catch, y'all. Tall with the brown hair and the amber eyes, and he has a very, there's no other way for me to describe this, but he has a bro voice. He just has a bro voice. But he shows up with Rukaku, like his friends from school, like, my dude. I love that Rukaku and Hashiguchi are like, we're going to get everybody, we're going to solicit votes for you. And he's like, that's called cheating. I'm like, no, that's called campaigning, and it should be legal. Right? And they're like, oh, hang in there, dude. I like that we get the little close-up of Hashiguchi. Like, Hashiguchi's trying to think of how to help Minato, because they're like, well, if he doesn't make it past this final, Hashiguchi's like, hey, there's this job. I'm just trying to help. I like the way Hashiguchi phrases it, too. Like, when he's like, hey, I want you to come to this company. And he's like, it's a small company, but there are good benefits. And he says, I support your dancing dreams, but maybe you could just at least meet the president. I loved Hashiguchi being supportive like that, because what I thought he was going to say is, hey, I support your dancing dreams, but I just don't see any future in it for you, or I don't know if you're going to make it, so this might be another avenue. He doesn't go that route. Instead, he says, hey, I support your dancing dreams, but I just want you to show you this position, just in case, so that you have a plan B. I thought that was really supportive. I thought that was cool. And then they're like, oh, we'll give you like a housing and allowance and employee dorm, and you can stay here and work. I don't know what it looks like. A shipping company. Looks like a moving company. And Hashiguchi with his like tie and jacket. Look at him. And everybody seems to like him. I'm like, this guy's a catch. Where's he been this whole time? Maybe him and Rukaku can have like a little relationship. Who knows? Not that I want to ship every two guys together, but I'm like, this guy's pretty cool. I wonder if Hashiguchi is going to be a love rival between Tsuge and Minato, because he's tall, dark, and handsome as well. So he's like, I should be able to make it back, and then he runs out of gas. And the thing is, Minato is so distraught at this point. He thinks he's not going to make it past the final. He thinks his dreams aren't going to work out. He's had this job offer put in front of him that's literally the definition of settling, but theoretically, settling isn't bad sometimes if you need a job, and it's better than the temp moving job. So, and he had experience in it. So, there's nothing wrong with, the thing is, what I love about what Tsuge says is he's like, you've worked so hard. You really want this. Even though you put yourself down, I'm going to help you try your hardest to get to that point, because you shouldn't give up. I mean, I think that it's important that you pursue your dreams to the fullest capacity that you can. As long as you still want it, and as long as you still desire it, and you are able financially and physically to go after that dream, do it. Because like he says here, if it doesn't work out, you can still get another job, and there's no shame in getting another job. There's no shame in that at all. But if you have the capability, don't give up. Keep trying. And if it doesn't work out and you no longer have the capability to pursue that dream, or you don't have the interest in pursuing that dream, because here's the thing, we all change as we get older. When I was in high school, I wanted to be an animator. I was like, I'm going to draw and animate for Disney or an animation studio. I'm going to do this. I look back on that now and go, I like drawing as a hobby, and I like artwork a lot, but I have no interest or desire in doing that professionally day to day. And that's just because my interests and my desires have changed over 20 years. And that happens to a lot of people. So if you suddenly lose the desire and passion towards a specific dream and you want to change it to something else, that's human. That happens all the time. But yeah, I just feel like Minato, he was giving up, and Tsuge's like, no. He's like, no, you can't just give up. You've worked so hard. He's like, screw the deities. We're gonna keep going. He's like, you're not disappointing me. And the fact that Tsuge has a motorcycle, he has a deep voice, he's a novelist, and he has a motorcycle. I'm like, Minato, this man has it all. And a cat. He has it all. Come on now. Like, he was so supportive. And he's kind of a dork. He's perfect. Come on now. I love that Tsuge has all of these check boxes. Kurosawa is the dreamboat. Tsuge is the catch, though, if you think about it. Because here's the thing. People are crushing on Kurosawa all the time. And if it were me, I get easily jealous, and I am self-aware of that. I get easily jealous around somebody I like. So if there's somebody else that I think they're crushing on, I have to rein myself in and be like, it's okay. It's fine. They can have friends that are also women. It's okay. But I know myself. I don't know if I could date Kurosawa, as wonderful and perfect as he is. I think I would constantly be worried about everyone else around him and be jealous. I think I would be. And Adachi is not a jealous person, so it works out great for them. But Tsuge's got all these check boxes, and people aren't beating down his doors, so I'm like, I could... And he's a handsome guy. You think they would be, but maybe because he has the glasses on. But I love that. Now, here's the thing. Unlike Adachi and Kurosawa, who have basically been kissing each other and giving love eyes throughout this series, Minato has shown like some affection towards, he's shown some affection towards Tsuge, but he's just like put his head against him or like leaned in for support and things like that. There's not been a love confession, and that becomes very obvious in this episode. There's not been a love confession. There's not been that moment of, oh, we like each other, and it all kind of comes, it's just been like friendly support, but I'm also like, is it friendly support, Minato? I mean, clearly Tsuge likes you. And I love, he's like, I hadn't drove a motorcycle in a while. So yeah, he's like, I thought he was a weird guy at first, but he's always encouraged me when I've nearly lost heart. Yeah. I was so focused on passing the audition, I forgot about the people watching me. So I don't know if Minato, like Tsuge went to watch him in the crowd. I don't know if Minato just didn't realize that there was another aspect to it. So, okay. The one guy, like one of the staff members was talking to him, and he looked like he was a little downhearted in that moment. But then Rokaku and them show up saying you made it to the final, and Shota complimented your dancing too. And then meanwhile, like an absolute dork, so like, Tsuge, why'd you wait outside? Why didn't you wait in there with Rokaku and them? Come on now. But no, he waited outside for him, and he's like, I'm so glad you did so well. You worked so hard. And then Minato's like, why are you so nice to me? And he's like, well, I have ulterior motives. Why did you say ulterior motives? Why didn't you just say that because you like him? You're a novelist. Use words, Tsuge. What the fudge? And Minato's like, what? And then at that point, he's like, oh, in other words, before he can say I like you, the one guy comes in there and says, the judges want to talk to you. Can you come back inside? And he says, sure. And then when he looks back at Tsuge, he looks worried. I'm like, don't misunderstand this. Don't misunderstand this. And he says, don't worry what I was going to say. Good luck in the final. And Minato doesn't say anything in reply. And I'm like, oh, I was like, I think he's misunderstood you. I'm like, oh. Now I have to watch episode 11 to find out what the misunderstanding is. Because there's some kind of bullshit miscommunication. And then he says, because he doesn't go back to watch him, he's like, I learned Minato lost in the final of the dance audition from something that I saw online. Meanwhile, Adachi's still trying to think of what to say. And Kurosawa's back from his business trip. He goes to a meeting. And he's like, okay, I'll talk to Adachi. He's like, can you talk after work today? Okay. Okay, I can distract myself by keeping busy. So maybe Kurosawa asked him to talk after work today, and then Kurosawa was busy at that meeting. Meanwhile, Tsuge is doing what I would do, and I would be panicking. I'd be panicking in my apartment. I'd be panicking in my house, being like, what's happening? And then we get this new guy, which props to the new temp guy, because he's like, I can't tell you about a previous employee. This new guy's like, I can't talk to you about Minato, weirdo. I hate that for Tsuge though, because Tsuge just wants to know. He's like, I've forgotten since I was desperate, but out of context, it wouldn't surprise me if he thought I was being a pervert. If I was a pervert being kind to him for ulterior motives. He's like, crap. He's like, why didn't I word it better? It's almost like I'm an author or something. And also, he's constantly self-conscious about the fact that he's 7 years older than him. But I'm like, my dude. He's like, what if it's not a misunderstanding? What if it is? But instead of just communicating, like he told Adachi needs to be there to tell him to communicate. He's like, I don't want to intrude on his life any further. My ability to read minds is meaningless if I can't touch him or meet him. Aww. I hate that for him. I'm like, you should just try to reach out and talk to him. But he has texted him once, and Minato didn't get back to him. So, makes sense, I guess. So then he gets there, and Kurosawa is already gone. And so he writes down Nagasaki. Meanwhile, poor Tsuge sees the shoes on sale, and then he looks and says, the miraculous rookie dance unit will debut on the first day of Shota's national tour. This is literally One Direction. There's 5 of them. Yep. Yeah. Okay, so maybe they wasn't the guy that didn't make it, but yeah, they're all together. Yeah. And then seeing all of them, and they all look like distinctly different. Yeah, Trap Trick. Oh my god, with the rainbow lightning bolt. Hell yes. They all, like, Power Rangers assemble, and Minato's like the main one. Oh my gosh. Poor Tsuge, though. I'm sure Tsuge feels like, oh, well, he's moved on from me. He's moved on. He doesn't have time for an author. He's just in a different world. It wasn't meant to be. I'm like, I do feel a little bit bad for Tsuge, because even if Minato was kind of weirded out by Tsuge did inspire him and keep him going. So to get this gig and not at least say thank you to Tsuge or explain yourself, I feel like Minato is kind of like in the wrong for not doing that. Now, I could be completely missing something, and we're going to find out next episode what the miscommunication is, but I'm like, Minato, you should say something, because he clearly cared about you and your ambitions, and you got your dream. So for him to find out on a billboard in the middle of town rather than from you, I want to like wag my finger at Minato a little bit, like, that's not nice, that's not right. But I hate that for Tsuge, because Tsuge worked so hard because he loved him. And to be completely, like, ghosted by him is really sad. And I feel for him. I feel so sad. And he can't talk to Adachi because Adachi's away on this business trip. Nagasa, his work trip starts today. And then he says that it'll be 10 whole days. Bitch, that's 5 business days each. not even 2 weeks business days. You two sassy men. How dare you? Meanwhile, Adachi's like, okay. Like, Kurosawa is sad because it'll be all this time, and Adachi's like, okay, I got 10 days. I have to tell Kurosawa how I feel. I feel fine for them. Like, they're gonna work it out. They're gonna be fine. Kurosawa loves him, so it's gonna be good. Minato is the question mark, because Tsuge loves Minato, but does Minato feel the same way about Tsuge? That's the big question mark. I don't know. Ooh! Okay. We have 2 episodes left, though, so I'm really excited to see what we get in said 2 episodes, but I guess we'll just have to see. Anyway, I'm super excited to hear your thoughts down below. This episode was great, but I'm super excited to see where this series goes, and we have 2 more episodes of the anime to find out. So, in the meantime, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back really soon with more cherry magic. Bye.